welcome to the Week in Review for the week ending July 14, 2012. I'm Veena Bharath, inviting you to spend the next half hour with me as we take an in-depth look at the stories that impact our daily lives. In this week's program, Trade, Industry and Investment Minister Vasant Bharath to take steps towards stimulating the local economy. The Honourable Minister of Health clears the air on the nursing issue. We take a look at why we are Trinbagonian. Chamber of Industry and Commerce CEO Catherine Kumar says education is part of the key to solving the crime problem. And the Minister of Education talks to junior cricketers. The Week in Review begins now. Let's take a look. Plans are being laid out by Trade, Industry and Investment Minister Vasant Bharath to take steps towards stimulating the local economy and local investors in order to arouse investor confidence among foreign investors. As a result, Minister Bharath says inefficiencies in the customs and port systems need to be resolved.
The private sector's ability to invest wherever in the world they are is governed to a large extent by the ease of doing business where they plan to put or they intend to put those funds. The fact is, we do live in a global economy today. People are no longer restricted to investing in their own countries or even in their own regions. They have global reach. So when an investor in Russia or China or India or the United Kingdom looks to invest, an individual investor, they look worldwide as to where to put those funds. And they're going to put those funds where they believe the ease of doing business, having taken into account the risk and rewards, are the best in their estimation. So therefore, we've got to create that environment in Trinidad and Tobago that allows people, locals as well as foreign direct investors, to be able to do business easily. So I believe that we need to take some radical decisions with regard to treating with the issues of customs and excise. And clearly, my additional portfolio of Minister in the Ministry of Finance will allow me that flexibility to be able to deal with the issues of customs and excise.
The trade facilitation and investment processes are being highlighted as areas of priority. On the issue of trade imbalances, Minister Bharath adds that one of the impediments was caused predominantly by the procedures of the Food and Drugs Department, which governs food imports in particular.
I can assure you that the process of overhauling and re-engineering the entire trade facilitation value chain is at top of my list. Another issue that Dominic talked about was the food and drug, and that is an issue that has created many a problem. And the strengthening of the institutional strengthening of that chain is very important. There are many instances where, as a result of, as the President said, the contradictory positions that the Food and Drug has taken and the indistinct procedures that they have adopted over the last several years, that several exporters to this country has had significant difficulties, culminating in, of course, the manufacturers themselves, the local manufacturers themselves being blamed as being protectionist, but more importantly, or as important, the reputational risk of Trinidad and Tobago being put at stake.
One of the outstanding issues, he says, is to fully implement the automated system for customs data, the Asecuda system, which should cut down on the waiting time in customs and portage.
I will ensure that the Asecuda system is seamlessly linked to the single electronic window so that we can resolve these issues in a very short matter of time.
The minister is also proposing to immediately address the lengthy delays in the refunding of value-added tax and quarterly corporation tax. He says he is looking into having refunds made within a much shorter period.
VAT refunds, another bane of contention, another source of problems for manufacturers over the years. It has really choked, to some extent, many of the businesses in Trinidad and Tobago because of the length of time and the lethargy involved in receiving VAT refunds. I have already spoken to the Minister of Finance on this matter. I had a discussion with him yesterday. I am very well aware that it's an anti-export bias because, of course, in many instances, you're having to pay VAT up front. And then, of course, when you export, you can't charge the VAT. And then you then have to wait 6 or 8 or 12 months. My intention is, in discussions with the Minister of Finance, that I will advocate for a maximum of 90 days for repayment of VAT to manufacturers.
In terms of investment facilitation, Minister Bharath has proposed that one agency, ETEC, handles all inquiries related to business investments instead of several government ministries and agencies. This, he says, will assist in resolving and avoiding confusion in the various inquiries.
We in Trinidad and Tobago have too many government institutions tasked with the role of investment promotions. Too many. In fact, a cursory look at it indicates that we have 3 ministries involved in investment promotions in Trinidad and Tobago, and several agencies under those 3 ministries that are involved in trade promotions in Trinidad, investment promotions in Trinidad and Tobago. I believe that this shotgun approach is at best naive, but more than that, it dilutes the focus and the resources of the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
At the awards ceremony for the Atlantic National Primary Schools Cricket League, Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, Minister of Education, reflected on the number of players who passed through the competition.
I'm advised that over the past few years, the standard of the cricket game has been on the rise in the participating primary schools. And later this year, quite a few players from this league could find themselves being called for trials later this year, Mr. Ramlal, as the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, Mr. Raghunath, prepares for the bilateral Under-13 Goodwill Series against Barbados. Yes? Indeed, several players who passed through the system under sponsorship over the past few years have gone on to greater heights in regional cricket. And just one example is former West Indies Under-15 captain Stephen Katwaru, who has also qualified for the national senior cricket team.
The minister stressed the importance of children indulging in sporting activity.
When children participate in sports, it has the power to combat everything from aggression to low self-esteem and self-image to the high school dropout rate. It combats all of these. And therefore, participation in sports is one of the most desired things for our students, whether it be cricket, football, athletics, volleyball, basketball, table tennis, badminton, swimming, water polo. All these sports are critically important for the development of our children.
The former Trinidad and Tobago fast bowler emphasized the importance of the game to the country at regional and international levels.
So when you represent your country, you represent the minds and you represent the emotions and of millions of people. But in Trinidad and Tobago, we have 1.3 million. But when we have our players in the West Indies team, you represent the minds of millions within the Caribbean and CARICOM. And recently on our Prime Minister's return from St. Lucia, when she came in on Friday, she spoke about the discussions that one of the major discussions in CARICOM was the issue of cricket. Because cricket is one, and if not, probably one out of 2 areas that bind the entire CARICOM region together from different countries. And probably the University of the West Indies is the other. So there were active discussions amongst the prime ministers of the Caribbean on just this matter of cricket.
Dr. Gopi Singh then made his position clear regarding extracurricular activities.
This league competition also goes hand in hand with our Ministry of Education Youth Trust for the development of extracurricular activities and sports in our schools. About a year ago, when I spoke about the need, the general population thought that I was banning extracurricular activities. That was not so at all. That was probably deliberate misinformation and mischief. It is getting the whole system of extracurricular activities structured in a manner that will allow for success of these extracurricular activities within the curriculum of the primary schools and even the secondary schools. And in that context, I sought the advice of many sportsmen, and today I have with me a National Advisory Committee on Sports for the Ministry of Education that will help to carry the sporting aspects within our school system.
Promoters, are you planning an event? If your noise is excessive, you can be shut down. Remember, music is our culture. Noise is not. To find out more, call the EMA or visit ema.co.tt.
Morning.
Post, my public assistant, check reach yet?
Oh, sorry, nothing.
Okay. Yeah, me check.
No, ma'am, nothing.
You were waiting on. Come, when me check.
Nothing today, Granny.
What you mean nothing?
The Granny, you better check the office.
The office at mine, you expect me to go down in
But
office?
Granny, why you arguing with the postman?
Because like my check loose in space.
Granny, you got your form to sign up for direct deposit. It's for senior citizens who receiving pension and those who receiving disability grant and public assistance.
Farm?
Direct deposit?
Yes, with direct deposit, the money goes directly into your bank account.
Directly?
Yes, so no more checking in the mail.
Good. Come inside and show me where this farm is.
Come
Yes,
on, Granny.
I better go down the road and tell some people down the road.
You do that.
Come on, Granny. Granny, come on. Granny!
Direct deposit. It's direct banking, direct payment. Call 800-4775 for further info. Direct deposit, making sense.
Steel pan, jab molasses, rapso and the chutney music are just a few aspects that make up the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. But safeguarding this culture from the rest of the world while showcasing it simultaneously is needed as Trinidad and Tobago aims to preserve its heritage at this marking point in our history of 50 years since independence. With this in mind, the Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism has opened up its We Are Trinbagonian campaign in an effort to gather an inventory of local culture. Newly appointed Arts and Multiculturalism Minister Dr. Lincoln Douglas, in opening the venture, says submissions encompassing national traditions and treasures should seek to engender a conscious recognition of our identity as a people.
We need your expertise. This is a collaboration between the state and the stakeholders. We need your cooperation. We need your participation. If these inventories are to become robust databases of the folkways, technologies, and treasured physical spaces of our people, then our citizenry must become engaged in the process of actively generating submissions for consideration, for inclusion in each inventory.
Director of Culture at the Ministry in charge with overviewing the project, Ingrid Ryan Ruben, noted that identifying and protecting the intangible cultural heritage belonging to Trinidad and Tobago has never been done to this extent.
Why are we ratifying international conventions for intangible and world and natural heritage? Because as we say in this campaign, these are the things that define who we are as Trinbagonians. And while some of us know it, we know that a lot of the young people who live in our world don't know it. And who we are today is as a result of how we began, how we got here, and who we were before we got here, and how in that mix we came to be who we are as Trinbagonians. And so that we recognize the importance of establishing our own national inventories, not only to recognize what we have, but to safeguard what is ours.
Submissions on discourses and inventories will not be limited to the creative arts only, but aspects of history, science, labor, religion, agriculture, and community life. Deadline for submission has been set at September 30th, while a selecting panel will congregate in October to make the decision. Dr. Douglas says this will be done in keeping with UNESCO standards for the development of such inventories.
After these inventories have been promulgated, what happens after Friday, the 14th of December 2012, we will announce the contents of each national inventory. Yes, the answer is the commencement of a developmental work related to the promotion, preservation, and development of the items listed in each inventory. The process we initiate today is but the first step in a collaborative approach the ministry which is responsible for culture is taking towards the implementation of the international conventions to which each inventory is related.
All visitors to the Why We're Trinbagonian Open House can make submissions to the national inventories and learn more about the conventions. Also, patrons can attend the Heritage Cinema, where they can learn more about the activities of the agencies of the ministry and their plans for commemoration of our 50th anniversary of independence.
Education is the key to being able to move into the sectors identified, to make sure we have the skill set that comes out of that. Education is key to solving the crime problem. Yes, the crime problem. If we get our students fully occupied, and Minister, you gave some very important stats recently, which I read, and I can hardly believe it. You said of the 17,000, if I recall,
70,000 students.
70,000 students entering school.
Secondary school.
Secondary school. Was it, I mean, it was less than 1/3 or just about 1/3 graduate.
About 40%.
40% graduate and
5 passes.
with 5 passes, and imagine that. And I mean, and that is money that the government is spending to get these students to school, give them free education, and they're still not graduating. And why? So all of these things we think are areas that we need to work with. The ministry and the chamber is committed to working with the government and all the ministries to see how we can help, work towards a solution for some of the challenges that Trinidad and Tobago is facing.
Ms. Catherine Kumar says the Chamber of Commerce identifies the great significance of the energy sector in this country. She adds that the Centennial Energy Digest contains a wealth of information written by renowned energy experts in the country and provides an insight and understanding of how the energy sector came about. She says the excellent research piece was produced by the Chamber, which saw it as being greatly beneficial to the student population.
This Centennial Energy Digest book that was produced by the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber. The Centennial Energy Digest was a thought which came out from the Chamber that the energy sector is the most important sector for Trinidad and Tobago as far as GDP, contributes over 50% of the GDP, and yet there wasn't a compilation of information brought together in one book anywhere. Yes, you can go and get stats on the various years, but bring it together and producing this as a document, which we consider to be a research document, really, that students who are interested in the energy sector, that universities, that anyone who's interested in this sector could look at the past, analyze the numbers, and do projections for the future. So a very important aspect of what we did with this is also every book comes with a CD, so the statistics, the 21-year statistics, is on electronic media.
Meanwhile, Education Minister Dr. Tim Gopi Singh is expressing gratitude to the Chamber for their initiative in making what he sees as a valuable contribution to the student body in this country. He says the book is the ultimate reference for any individual desirous of inquiring about the energy sector.
It's the Centennial Energy Digest, which has been described by industry specialists and government officials as the ideal reference for students, policymakers, investors, and anyone interested in learning about the Trinidad energy model. I understand that It's the first institution ever in Trinidad and Tobago to compile over 20 years of energy data into one complete, user-friendly publication. And this handbook, or hardback copy, is not a handbook, it's a hardback book divided into two parts. Part 1, insights into Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector, comprising 12 research articles. And Part 2 covers 20 years of energy data, supported by both tabular and graphical presentations, and it is available on CD-ROM as well. So, thank you very much, Madam CEO, for your kind gesture to the education system of Trinidad and Tobago.
Minister Gopi Singh is also revealing government's aim to develop and expand the science departments at secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago.
And this is in keeping with our Ministry of Education thrust to have more science taught in the secondary schools and to increase the amount of students doing science throughout the secondary school system. The amount of schools with science labs we are going to increase considerably over the next year by building science blocks and having more science teachers within the schools so that the students will have a deeper appreciation of what is necessary in terms of the future world where information technology and science play an important role. And so therefore we will continue to work with the Ministry of Labour in the market study analysis and the Ministry of Science, Technology and Education, tertiary education, in terms of their skills training.
You're shopping for a house to call your home, or you've already got one of your own. Know your mortgage guidelines. Tell me terms. Tell me rate. Fees and charges. Calculate. Will it change? And on what day? Hey, what's the current mortgage market reference rate?
You need to know so much about your home mortgage. Get the Residential Mortgage Market Guideline. It's your right to know about your mortgage so you can know your way home.
Noise can have serious effects on babies, the elderly, at-risk patients, and pets. It can cause migraines, irritability, hearing loss, and sleep deprivation. Remember, music is our culture. Noise is not. To find out more, call the EMA or visit ema.co.tt.
The Health Minister says the removal of the Nursing Council exam is not a hasty decision, but one arrived at after much review, discussion and consultation of data and with stakeholders. He adds that the existing structure is archaic and outdated, as the qualifying examinations are now set by the tertiary level institutions, whereas the licensing exam is set by the Nursing Council. This exam, he says, originated since there was no other exam in place before. The minister says they are now internationally recognized and accredited tertiary-level institutions such as UWI, COSTAT and USC, which offer certificates and degrees in nursing, and they are now responsible for the training and examination of these nursing students using global best practice. The Nursing Council, he says, should not be a training and examination organization and is not accredited to do that. He adds that training and examinations should remain with institutions developed to do this, such as tertiary-level schools.
When that exam came into being, the Nursing Council was responsible for nursing exams because there were no accredited institutions who were doing training of nurses. Now we have University of the West Indies, we have the COSTAT, and we have the HERS. Those accredited institutions are institutions that develop an accredited program. They are both practical and academic studies. They themselves have exams going right through. They have a final exam. And these nurses are trained based on the wards as well as off-ward study programs. So to have the Nursing Council exam right after their final exam, it is not keeping with proper regulatory bodies practices, such as the Dental Council, Medical Council, the other professional bodies. So it would be wise if somebody wanted to write this exam to migrate, it could be an optional exam, not a compulsory exam.
Dr. Khan says the requirements for other professionals such as dentists, doctors and lawyers are not even as stringent as those for nurses. He adds that some nurses have been led to believe that the licensing exam is necessary to ensure that they are properly qualified, suggesting that the certificate or degree from the tertiary institutions is inferior in some way to the licensing exam. He says one must not be misguided. The health minister is also commenting on what he calls the high failure rate for the Nursing Council exam. He says most of the nurses failing the licensing exam are holders of certificates and degrees from tertiary level institutions, and as such, he deduces that the problem is not with the nurses, but with the licensing exam itself, and also with the difference in teaching methods over a period of time.
Well, you have two types of educators: old educators and new educators. The new training methods makes you think. It's called critical thinking. It makes you think in a manner, and you answer questions based on your thinking as well as your teaching, what you've learned. You could watch an exam paper with a question on it, and the question could be answered in a different manner, but with the same ideas. In the nursing exam, if you don't have exactly what they say that exam is supposed to have, which remember was the old way of teaching, that if you do not have A, B, C, D in that order, then you have failed. Your conceptual ideas in the new technology, in new methods of teaching, is how you approach a problem. Now, there are different ways to approach a problem, different ways to answer a problem. Not exactly where key is concerned, that this is how it's supposed to be answered. If it's not answered this way, then you failed. And sorry, we have gone through that system at our levels initially, that if you did not regurgitate exactly what the person taught you, you have failed, even if what they're teaching you is wrong. And I think that is the concept why there's a high failure rate.
The minister also sought to address another major concern raised regarding the standards and quality of training. He says these in no way will be lowered, but in fact be improved, since the tertiary level institutions will continue looking at ways to ensure the standard of nursing examinations is continually monitored, improved, and remains high. Dr. Khan assures that the Nursing Council will continue to be consulted by the tertiary level institutions for development and future improvements to the curriculum of the various institutions. Dr. Khan is also assuring nurses that their best interest was being sought in the matter.
I'm not removing the exam, I'm making it optional. It's not going to be compulsory for entrance. The other thing, I'm not bringing Indian nurses to displace the nurses here. In fact, I'm allowing our nurses in Trinidad and Tobago to be in the system, not out of the system. There will be no money removed from any nurse salary. They will continue to get what they have to get and maybe more.
And that's a look at GISL's Week in Review. Here's a reminder that you can view segments of this program on our website at news.gov.tt. I'm Vina Bharat. Thanks for joining us. Do have a great week.